Rico. They've made one pass southwest to northeast. Preliminarily, the data confirming we still got the Category 2 hurricane moving northwest. So it is moving away from Puerto Rico, but not fast enough and not a small enough hurricane that the rain has stopped. And with the rain that's already fallen, we've got numerous river gauges in major flood stage across the entire island. And looking a little bit more closely, if I could envision what the radar might look like if we had it, you could envision this nasty band on the eastern side still kind of expanding away from the center of circulation in terms of the redevelopment of banding that's coming in from the south. And when you've got the complex terrain, the mountains in the middle of the island, anything that coming in from the south is going to squeeze out additional moisture, especially in the southern part of the island, but the whole island getting very heavy rain right now.
But even when you imagine it also coming in from the west?
Yes, over here on the west side of the island,
right.
Absolutely. But the worst terrain effects with regard to enhancing the rainfall rates is going to be coming in from the south even long after the center has gone far away. We're going to have, look at all these bands still out here in the Virgin Islands. So it's going to rain well into Thursday, and that's why this is such a dangerous situation. Here, a relatively new flash flood warning that does include San Juan and Cedro and Guaynabo. These are just flash flood warnings all over the island, and it's because the rainfall that's already happened is causing the rivers to be way above normal, above what we can even measure with the gauge system there, and then more rain's falling on top of that.
So I think what's so frightening and scary about this, Dr. Nab, is the fact, how do you warn or communicate about an event that has never happened before?
Well, part of the strategy was to get a lot of people out of extremely vulnerable areas that they know in the past have experienced flash floods and mudslides. So a lot of people were told to get out before the hurricane even got there. Now, in this case, you read the Weather Service flash flood emergencies and flash flood warnings. The statements say, get to higher ground now. This is an extremely life-threatening situation, so they're trying to warn people on short notice. If you're still in some flood-prone areas that are under these warnings, to get to as high ground as you possibly can.
Because you would think, I mean, if you've lived in a home, your family's lived there for generations, and you've lived through the worst of flooding down there, right? And it's never been this high now.
Yeah, when it's unprecedented and setting records, it can overwhelm a lot of systems and a lot of people. But again, hopefully, if people didn't get out, they're listening to these warnings and they're getting to as high ground as they possibly can. And I wanted to show you what this area near Rio is. This is a river basin that has been under a flash flood emergency during the evening tonight, and I suspect it's been reissued, and we'll try to update you on that when that happens. But this is just one example of a community that's upslope, I'll say about 600 feet above sea level, but look at the big mountains around it. And here is that river, Rio de la Plata, flowing through town. We've had that river gauge there that went above its operating capability. We don't know how high the water got. All the Weather Service office in San Juan can presume from that is that the water has gotten so high, higher than it's ever been, unprecedented, that it's got to be catastrophic flooding for these folks.
And its chances are they're not hopping in their car. These bridges could be gone. When they say seek higher ground, you're meaning walk out the back door and head up the hill.
Find a way to get to higher ground before the floodwaters overcome where you are, yes. There's no easy way to deal with this, but in these kinds of overwhelming flash flood emergencies, it's do whatever you can to get to higher ground to save your life. And here's Rio, here's where the river gauge is, and then this river flows down from this elevated location toward the north coast of Puerto Rico. And you see the river flowing through pretty well-populated areas. I mean, these are folks who live up in the mountains that are very susceptible to flash flooding and mudslides. And then here is a community called San Jose. Here comes the river, and you can see this area. This is kind of a floodplain, but people live right next to it. This would be a typical floodplain. I'm sure the river is bringing some water into these communities in this very atypical situation. And then it goes farther north to the northern coast of Puerto Rico in the Dorado area. A wonderful community here. I even have met some people who live in this area, and the river comes flowing through here out to the Atlantic Ocean. So even if you didn't get the rainfall here necessarily, the rain that fell in the mountains causes the river to come raging down to your low-lying community.
All right, Dr. Nab, this is some scary stuff with more rain on the way.
I hate to say it, but there's maybe another foot of rainfall to come again, especially on that southern shore of Puerto Rico.
So coming up in a few minutes, you're going to talk about the potential scenarios after, right, once it gets beyond.
Yeah, quick look at the track forecast. It takes it north in between North Carolina and Bermuda. Can't rule out U.S. East Coast impacts.
All right, talk about that coming up. Liana?
All right, thank you so much, guys. And Dr. Nat,